Welcome to our True Way Teen Bible Study on Baby Moses. Download the free printable lesson pack on our website to follow along. The account of baby Moses is one of the most well-known and beloved stories in the Bible. It is a story of faith, courage, and divine intervention. It tells of a baby born into a world of oppression and persecution who was rescued and raised to become one of the greatest leaders in history. Our Bible reading for this study is Exodus 1-2:10. Background. Exodus is the second book of the Bible and follows the book of Genesis. The book of Exodus continues from the story of Joseph, who was sold into slavery by his brothers and rose to become an influential leader in Egypt. The story of the birth of Moses begins in Exodus chapter 1, nearly 400 years after the events recorded in Genesis. During this time, a great deal had changed in Egypt. The new king in Egypt had no knowledge of Joseph or his accomplishments. Under Pharaoh's rule, the Hebrews were subjected to harsh enslavement, including hard and forced labor. As the Hebrew population in Egypt grew larger, Pharaoh became increasingly worried about their potential for revolt. So, he decided to order all Hebrew baby boys to be killed. But God had another plan for Moses. As a result of his mother's faith, Moses was saved from death and found refuge among Pharaoh's own family and was raised as a prince in Egypt. Key points. 1. Remember what God has done. Exodus chapter 1 verse 9. 400 years after Joseph, it was as if he had never existed in the eyes of Egypt. The Pharaoh and his people had forgotten how God used Joseph to save the country from a severe famine. Sadly, we live in a world that still forgets God and what he has done. Even today, many refuse to recognize God's power and the good he does for us. We only need to look at how people live to see that they have forgotten about God and his ways. Materialism has become more important than spiritual growth, and we have become consumed with the pursuit of money, power, and pleasure. People often turn away from God when life gets difficult instead of turning toward him for strength and courage. But this shouldn't be the case. As Christians, we must remember God and all he has done for us. We can remember God and his past faithfulness in many ways. First and foremost, we should pray, thanking God for all he has done for us. We can also read the Bible to learn about all the amazing things God has done for his people throughout history. Another great way to remember God's faithfulness and promises is by participating in a Bible study group. By joining with others, we can engage in meaningful conversations about God's unconditional love and faithfulness for his people, the past, present, and future. 2. The faithfulness of God. Exodus chapter 1 verse 12. Exodus begins by reminding us that 70 of Jacob's descendants moved to Egypt. Exodus chapter 1 verses 1-5. But then, in Exodus chapter 1 verse 7, we read that the sons of Israel were fruitful and increased significantly. They multiplied and became exceedingly mighty, so much so that the land around them was filled with them. While Pharaoh relentlessly sought to limit the Israelites, his efforts ultimately failed as their population continued to grow. In Exodus chapter 1 verse 12, we read, "The more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and the more they spread out." Even after Pharaoh's command to kill the Hebrew boys at birth, the people of Israel continued to multiply and become very mighty. This was a testament to the faithfulness of God and his covenant with Abraham that his descendants would become a great nation. Pharaoh's attempts to control and diminish the population failed because of the faithfulness of God. God faithfully keeps his covenant promises in his time and way. Even in times of suffering, God's people were able to increase and become mighty, showing us that God will always keep his word. After God promised 75-year-old Abraham he would have a son, it took him and his wife Sarah 25 years until Isaac was born. Over 400 years have passed in Exodus chapter 1, but God remained faithful and true to his word. 3. Letting go and trusting God. Exodus chapter 2 verse 3. Jochebed was a woman of great faith who trusted God with all her heart. When Jochebed gave birth to Moses, she knew that Pharaoh had commanded that all Hebrew baby boys be thrown into the river. Rather than give in to fear, Jochebed did something remarkable. She trusted God to protect her son and put him in a basket made of reeds, placed it among the reeds along the bank of the Nile, and sent her daughter to watch over him. God had a plan for Jochebed's son, and he used this act of faith to deliver the baby safely into the arms of Pharaoh's daughter. In turn, God allowed Jochebed to be his nursemaid. Jochebed got to raise her own son with the best resources possible. Jochebed is just one example of someone who trusted God with the most important things in their life. Her example reminds us that we can trust God with what we hold dear. We must have faith that He will give us the direction, wisdom, and resources necessary to decide big things such as career paths, relationships, finances, and spiritual growth. We may not understand everything that is happening or where it will lead us, but we can trust God. 4. God's providence in life. Exodus chapter 2 verse 5. God's providence means God actively guides, protects, and provides for His people, even in challenging and uncertain circumstances. It encompasses all aspects of life, from the individual to the collective, and serves as a reminder that God is always in control. Exodus chapter 2 verse 5 says, "And the daughter of Pharaoh came down to bathe at the river, while her young women walked along by the riverside, and she saw the basket among the reeds and sent her maid to fetch it." This verse is a testament to God's sovereign providence over Moses' life. While many people believe in luck in life, the reality is that God is always in control. Nothing happens by chance or misfortune when it comes to His providence. God knows all that has happened, is happening, and will happen in the future. While it might seem like things happen in life, they are often part of a larger plan determined by God. His providence is seen in the small and large events that occur in our daily life. We can trust that nothing is by chance with God but is instead part of God's ultimate plan. Conclusion. Exodus 1-2 shows us that God is always faithful to His promises, no matter how long it takes to fulfill them. We can trust God with the most important things in our lives, no matter how uncertain or difficult our circumstances may be. God's providence means nothing happens by chance, so we can trust that everything is part of His larger plan for our lives.